Twitter has lost its legal protection in India from prosecution over users' posts because of its failure to comply with new digital rules. This is what government sources are saying, as a case was also filed in UP against Twitter over tweets that the police say attempted to incite communal trouble. There were journalists and political leaders who have also been named over here. Are we essentially at the end of Twitter as we know it in this country? Will Twitter now be obliged to listen to everything that the government orders? Because if they aren't protected from action, then their freedom could be affected. On the other hand, has Twitter really followed or abided by local laws? It really depends who you ask. So this is what has happened today. They've lost their legal shield. They can now be charged for users' posts. Twitter is yet to comply with the digital rules that came into force on the 25th of May. Now that's what the government keeps saying, that they haven't followed the rules, therefore they could be in trouble just like anybody else, any other publisher. Due to their non-compliance, their protection as intermediary is gone. So it is this intermediary status which is protecting them thus far. Twitter can face liability for violating any Indian law. They've refused to comment so far, has Twitter, so we are waiting to hear from them. Ravi Shankar Prasad, the minister, says Twitter had multiple opportunities to comply but deliberately chose non-compliance. It's astounding that Twitter, which portrays itself as a flag bearer of free speech, chooses the path of deliberate defiance. Immunity from third-party content was guaranteed under Section 79 of the IT Act, but as an intermediary, Twitter could not be penalized for user posts. That is before. That's all changed. That's what this is all about now. But laws have changed, and Twitter did not comply with the provisions of the new IT rules. So the government has revoked Twitter's immunity. So essentially, that is what this is all about. Joining us now, Shama Mohammed, spokesperson of the Congress. Shama is one of the people who's actually been named in that FIR by the UP police for her tweet with regard to a particular case in Uttar Pradesh. Mishi Chaudhary, the technology lawyer, with us. Thopali Srinivas, the BJP leader, joins us, as also Professor Kanchan Kaur, the assessor of fact check. Thank you all very much for being with us. Mishi Chaudhary, let me come to you first. Will there now be a scenario where Twitter will potentially kowtow to the government because there's nobody protecting them?
So let me clarify the legal position here. I think no matter the tweets or any kind of statements, neither the government nor the ministers or ministries decide the legal shield or the status of an intermediary. It is an exemption provision which has always meant that when legally a case is filed against a user and a platform is also made a party, they go to court and they say that if there was a court order or if there was an actual reasoned order from a government, they told us that this content needs to be taken down, and we took it down. We've done our job. We are not responsible for whatever this user may have done. So exempt us. That is what this legal shield or safe harbor or kavach or whatever you are talking about is laid down in law. Nobody just by saying, oh yeah, today you are losing this status, and they lose a status. It's not a registration. It's not a trademark. It is not a domain that Twitter forgot to renew and now they've lost that status.
Okay.
It's the courts who decide. It's not the police who decides. It's not the ministers who decide about that. That's my first thing. So there's a lot of confusion.
Okay, I just wanted to go across to Professor Kanchan Kaur. I understand what Mishi is trying to say, but it doesn't work that way, does it? On the day that Twitter was told that, you've lost this intermediary status, you're like any other publisher in this country, there is a case which is filed in Uttar Pradesh, Twitter is named on it. Therefore, isn't there some sort of clear messaging which is on? That you are now liable for what you put onto that, because if it's disagreeable for whatever the reasons may be, then you're in trouble as well. Watch out.
Yes, and that's absolutely true. Actually, if you ask me, it was a bit foolish of Twitter not to have complied with the rules. They're the rules, and well, we know that rules can be unreasonable at times, but as a business, the first thing you would do is comply with the rules and then take up any other battle that you might want to take up. So having said that, there's definitely a difference between a publisher and a platform. While at one point you could say the first is the speed at which things keep coming up on a platform, especially on the digital media, it's very, very difficult to control it. And it's just serving really as a platform for user-generated content.
Okay.
On the other hand, as publishers, you would have gatekeeping. You would be publishing what you have worked on and not what somebody else has worked on. And even if you are putting in external columns written by somebody else, you are still putting it through a process of gatekeeping. And therefore, the publisher could be held a lot more more liable in some ways. But with these social media platforms, then social media cannot function at all if you're going to have to say that every tweet, every little thing has to go through a certain amount of scrutiny. And despite
that's just the point. No one knows when that scrutiny starts. I think it depends on what exactly it is that you tweet. Shama Mohammed, the Congress leader, joins us. She's been named in that FIR today. Shama, do you intend to cut down on your tweeting based on what has happened to you today?
Never. Never. I haven't done anything what other newspapers or publications have told that particular day. Your own channel reported it. PTI has reported it. Times Now has reported it. Indian Express has reported exactly what I've said. Why is there an FIR on me and why is there not FIR on them? What is the reason is one question asked. So definitely, I'm not somebody who's going to fear these people. When the truth is out there, we have to speak. You have to understand Twitter are mediums where people come out and say the truth many times. And of course, there are fake newses. We all know that. Now, let's take the case of Siddiq Kappan, a journalist who wanted to do reporting by the normal norms, just like you. But what has happened on him? There is a UAP on him. Why? That's the question we need to know. Now, what today I read was Twitter loses its legal protection in India for flaring communal sentiments. Now, let me just read for you one tweet last year, which flared communal sentiments in New Delhi. दिल्ली पुलिस को 3 दिन का अल्टीमेटम, जाफराबाद और चांदबाग की सड़कें खाली करवाइए, इसके बाद हमें समझाएगा।
Right, so this is what flared up and caused the riots. It is alleged in Northeast Delhi, right? And there was that tweet was not taken down. That's what your point is.
No, what I'm saying is that last time also they were showing, Twitter was showing videos saying goli maro, desh ke gaddaron ko, goli maro salon ko. Why didn't you take action when Twitter showed those videos?
So let me take that question to Mr. Srinivas. So that's the real worry over here, Mr. Srinivas. That, you know, there's going to be this selective use of Twitter of taking down content if it suits your political purpose. So Shama's actually named a few examples on when there is this blind hate which has existed on Twitter, which doesn't get taken down, and then over here, for right or for wrong, people like her are named in an FIR. Twitter also gets an FIR.
Vishnu, thank you so much for calling me here. And second time we are debating on the same topic. And glad that we are taking out a lot of topics here. If you have listened to the Honorable IT Minister's statements, he has been very categorically clear that things have not been followed since February onwards when the rule had been made. Now, when the Honorable Congress spokesperson is talking about one incident, I am talking about multiple incidents what Twitter has done. In short, hold on, please. Listen to me out. The Sultanate of Twitter has to listen to the Republic of India. This is my opening statement.
The what? Because the what of Twitter?
The Sultanate. Because it is behaving as a judge and a judicator.
Okay.
It is behaving in an independent manner.
Okay.
It's a metaphor. Sultanate of Twitter has to listen to the Republic of India. The reason is very simple. It is not about current aspect here. It has been a lot of multiple aberrations which have been there. For example, the geographical location of Ladakh shown in China.
Yeah,
You're talking about. That. Hold on. I'm also coming to the second point.
They fixed it.
Now, Shamaji talked about Goli Maro Saloko. I'm talking about multiple content of hate being pushed from outside India during the farmers' agitation. Why did the Twitter not take out? It is a selective making and marking of a mistrust information.
But Mr. Srinivas, what is it that you want to take down? Anything that you dislike? Should Twitter be taken down because they made a mistake on a map on Ladakh which they have changed, right? Should Twitter be taken down because they refuse to take off tweets of people who have protested during the farmer protests. Is that reason enough?
See,
So
when
you
the
heard what happened with dissent yesterday in the High Court, sir. It's our right.
I'm giving you one factual statement here. When the Delhi police had an interview with the so-called Twitter managing director, he said, "I am not whatsoever. I have role in the operations relating to the content." He's just a mere sales head. He gave a statement. That means Twitter has only a statutory shares.
Yeah, that's right. That is their structure. And I appreciate the need to have an intermediary in India. That's a separate point. But I think the question being raised over here is that what is this going to result in? It goes well beyond the appointment of a officer. That's not what we are discussing. Mishi, would you like to comment on this? What is the real issue over here? The real issue here is what you can say and what you cannot say, right?
Yes.
Because if you say some stuff, you will be frowned upon.
Yeah, first thing I want to say is that it is not the first time a case has been filed or an FIR has been registered with where one of these platforms is a party. There have been several such cases which have been filed a lot of times, and that is when when these parties go to court and then they say this is we have been wrongly implicated in this case. We also have a legal safe harbor provided to us. That's my first point. The second point is these companies definitely require there is definitely a requirement for regulation. There is definitely a requirement for more transparency as well as accountability about how decisions are being made. Now, one of the problems is that our own law, when government actually sends an order for content blocking or taking down of certain content or handles, requires confidentiality and secrecy. So we do have to understand that we have to change that part. The third, these companies, only last year in June, when Mr. Trump was on his way out of being in the presidency, started labeling this, that manipulated media or something else. Companies make their money by profiling us, by collecting a lot of data about us. So the more engagement happens on these platforms, they'll love it. However, we ourselves want them that, oh, there is a lot of disinformation and misinformation or something else, which child sexual abuse material. We want you to take down this. They would love to be just left alone and nobody tells them to take away anything and they are not liable. You and I can do whatever we want on their platforms. But because we want them to take down certain materials, that is why they are the ones who are forced to do it.
Okay.
Fourth, they don't want to be the adjudicator, judge, jury, or sultanate or whatever. They don't want to be.
So it's a question of what actually the standards are. I need to start wrapping this up because I'm out of time. The Supreme Court wants them to say that only. The Supreme Court also said only if you receive a court order or you receive a reasoned order from the government. So I think, Mishi, the point, and you mentioned this point earlier, and I need to wrap this up by saying that hopefully there will not be a random utilization of the law against Twitter and what people tweet. Just, right? I'm completely out of time, I'm afraid. Okay, just 30 seconds. First to Shama and then to Mr. Srinivas. Yes.
What I want to say today is that it has to be transparent. When an Amit Malviya says Delhi is in the grip of Islamic onslaught during the Delhi riots, no action was taken. They have to be transparent. Yes, if you want to attack Twitter, let it be transparent. Let it attack on
Mr.
everybody's
Srinivas, last word to you.
Or somebody in the Congress party. And let me tell you, I am going to be
one second, Shama, there's a time issue over here. Mr. Srinivas, go ahead. Yeah.
I will.
See, there are multiple statements across the board. Twitter has to regulate it, period. There should not be ifs and buts.
All right. There should not be ifs and buts. Twitter needs to start regulating. Hopefully that will be done peacefully and hopefully that will be done fairly. I'd like to thank our panelists all very much for being with us.